Minecraft is so synonymous with the entire medium of video games that even people who don't typically play games usually have at least one device with Minecraft installed on it. Its online reach is unfathomable, and there are many other games that have managed to replicate its success. With such an absurdly high player count, it only makes sense that people would diverge and create so many little sub-communities to just vanilla Minecraft. Custom map makers, modders, streamers, predators, the list goes on. I was always very partial to the creative mode of Minecraft, meaning I looked at tutorials of how to make Mega Man sprites out of colored wool and gave up out of frustration. What I really liked, however, was the creepypasta side of things. Rumors of mysterious entities and unknown players silently surveying your single-player servers, ghosts that haunt the servers, tales of players encountering something that simply shouldn't exist in the game, things that seem askew and just a bit frightening, enough to ask forums about it and either be met with unending mockery or genuine curiosity. Minecraft came out of an era where young people like me weren't tech-savvy enough to simply search online if something was real, so these digital urban legends were simply made real to us through make-believe and just not knowing any better. You could come up with anything and back it up with a reasonable level of evidence, and someone was bound to believe the rumor you made up on something spooky you saw in a cave. Minecraft was hardly the only game to have this following. Plenty of others followed suit, but those player bases eventually grew up and left those urban legends in the wind, because people became much more aware of how the technology works. So it's very easy to dig into a game's files and get objective answers. While other games' creepypasta edges began to soften out, Minecraft kept it going strong and pivoted to another genre entirely, ARGs, or alternate reality games. The premise of convincing someone to suspend their disbelief was the same, but for an entirely different purpose, to tell an engaged, more direct story. The creepypastas were usually related to forum posts or short stories, but the ARGs typically focused on having characters played by actors, using the term loosely there, and using Minecraft as a vehicle to tell their story, either something happening in-game or the game being used as a metaphor for a theme or whatever. I suppose the changes reflect the current era of new people, usually young people, getting bitten by the horror bug and wanting their favorite properties to become dramatic and dark, just like Pibby. The big difference being that some of these are still going on, I think. We're still somewhat in the ARG horror era of the internet, soon to be usurped by analog horror, unfortunately. While we still don't have a wave of poorly made VHS filters over Minecraft gameplay to sift through, allow me to show you a brief history of Minecraft's darker side, behest at its community. I want to take everyone here through a journey through what the internet can do to its favorite properties, to look at it backwards, to explore the stranger side of video games for all the world to see. If this at all sounds interesting, that will be for two reasons. Firstly, you've probably seen my last Minecraft video and are thoroughly sandstone pilled. But for newcomers, you are more than welcome to become sandstone pilled for the first time. Taking this pill means you have to subscribe to the channel and do all the plugging I need. You know, liking the video and whatnot. Perhaps even join the Patreon to get videos like these early? You can always have the other option, I guess. What does that entail? Well, I'll get you. The second reason you may like this is that one of these entries in particular is very, very unlike the others. Some would call this specific entry lost media and other descriptions of the sort, and I'm going to be laying down some clues all throughout the video. So watch the whole thing from start to end to get properly caught up on what I believe to be, with little exaggeration, the most mysterious and obscure Minecraft horror project of all time. I know that sounds cool. Better stick around to find out what it is. Especially if you're a fan of the channel's Scare Theater. Just trust me on that. But first, let me explain how I'm going to divide the video. I'll have some definitive divisions between creepypasta and ARG for the most part, and I will be bringing up specific examples for both to explain what they are, their impact, and how they reflected their player base at the time of the creation. There's some genuine sociological analysis going on when you have to ask the question, what was going through the creators' heads when they made this? You have to factor everything in the year the project was made, the author's personal taste, the technology at the time, what version of Minecraft was being used, etc. This video is focusing mostly on the fan-created horror, rather than something that's officially in the game like the Endermen or zombie pigmen. Without further ado, let's get started on a brief history of Minecraft horror. (2010). Creepypastas are a real favorite of mine. Anyone who knows my channel can tell you that. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm biased in favor of these internet stories, regardless of their tendency for spotty quality. Anyone who knows about creepypastas as internet horror stories knows they have a lot of detraction against them for good reasons. Joking about overusing the term hyper-realism and blood leaking out of Hank Hill's eyes or whatever came about because little kids genuinely thought it was scary when their favorite creators in cartoons came to life and started bleeding, and this is somewhat reflected in a lot of Minecraft stories. Many creepypastas are often kids' first attempts at writing, so it makes sense that these stories are less than respected pieces of media. But many of these stories, often written anonymously, have had gargantuan reach not just within the creepypasta community, but within both the Minecraft community as a whole, and even in the broader scopes of how people talk about video games online in general. Naturally, some of you have already guessed what story I'm talking about is already. It's Herobrine. The name will undoubtedly sound familiar to anyone who's even just heard of Minecraft because of how synonymous this character is with Minecraft as a brand. The wide-eyed default player skin who silently observes you in single-player, ominously monitoring you and building strange monuments and structures without explanation for you to find. The origins of Herobrine are muddled and have become complicated because everyone has their own opinions and legends about this figure, arguing what is canonical to the character, which depends on the individual. But I believe there is a traceable, objective history that led to this character. Before Minecraft was officially released, people were discussing an old bug Minecraft had where blocks would obtain this white outline. The bug is old enough that it was being documented when the jukebox was being added to the game, so it goes way back. On YouTube in July of 2010, someone named Kerchak uploaded the infamous 13.ogg track used in caves, with a seemingly black screenshot. Or was it truly black? These two small slits set the official Minecraft forums on fire, and people began to argue if it was an outline glitch mentioned above, or something else entirely. The imagination of these forum users went wild until a name was attached to these eyes: White Eyes. The stories evolved from different users contributing their ideas and theories as to what this could be, until it manifested into an enigmatic, cave-dwelling creature that Mojang covertly added. Many were unconvinced of this and chose not to believe, but those who did let their imagination run wild until more and more lore was added to the situation, where later descriptions of this white-eyed creature looked like the default player model with his signature eyes. Eventually, this image popped into existence, depicting the appearance of White Eyes, or as he's now known, Herobrine would look forever. The story that came attached with the image detailed a user investigating Herobrine's strange behavior and trying to figure out exactly what he was. Was he a player or a ghost? The name Herobrine, according to the story, came from a user who tried to meddle in the affairs of the author investigating the entity, while others later theorized that Herobrine was Notch, the creator of Minecraft's dead brother, which he had to publicly deny through dozens of emails over the years. Herobrine positively exploded in popularity once this image was made, with thousands of people now afraid that he was infecting their games and had become a genuine threat. Things really got crazy when an old-school streamer named Copeland streamed his journey to find Herobrine, which proved successful because he did indeed find the white-eyed creature. Herobrine quickly became a sort of mascot for video game creepypastas because of how deeply rooted he was in the early culture of Minecraft and had become so enormously popular that Mojang themselves caught wind of him and kept adding him in their patch notes for various updates. With all that being said, is Herobrine a real phenomenon? Did players actually encounter him at any point in Mine? No. Herobrine is very much a made-up story that convinced untold thousands he was a real threat because of how seriously he was taken by huge swaths of the fanbase. What is especially interesting about Herobrine is that his creator is totally anonymous. Nobody knows who modified this alpha build screenshot or who wrote the story. It was posted anonymously on 4chan's export in 2010, so no one person can really claim credit for creating Herobrine. That honor belongs to the folks who were innocently speculating and commenting on the forums back in 2010. They didn't know it at the time, but their ideas and suggestions would face potentially the most iconic gaming creepypasta character ever. Well, behind Sonic.exe, I guess. Something that immediately distinguishes Herobrine is that basically anyone can adapt him as they please and use him for whatever they want. But before that, let's explain the fundamentals. According to his canon, as in what people consider to be real information about him, Herobrine is the ghost of Notch's dead brother, his non-existent brother, mind you. People don't really know what his motives are, but he tends to leave strange structures in your maps. Small pyramids in the ocean, trees stripped of leaves, small tunnels, and other strange marks of his presence. This may not sound spooky in the current year, but let me explain how people in the early 2000s felt by using an example from the 2020s. You boot up Gary's mod. You are alone on Flatgrass or Construct. You're familiar with Valve's games, so the openness of the map combined with Half-Life 2 sound effects and textures feel a little uneasy, a little strange. Naturally, locations designed to house dozens of people suddenly being empty flicks primal switches in your brain. The animal part of you that needs to prepare to outrun predators. The part that suspects something is wrong. The same kind of feeling someone can feel while playing Minecraft alone. You're exploring the map at your leisure, the only sounds being your footsteps on the ground, when you see something in the corner of your eye. It's something. Something catches your eye. All of a sudden, when you thought you were alone, you weren't. But why? Who is this? What is this? Are you in danger? No, of course not. You're playing a video game. But for a rare moment, if even for a second, you felt like your life was in question because of a raw impulse, a split second of animalistic instinct and fear that radiated through your screen. This is the fear that people felt in the 2010s. This is what Herobrine lived and breathed throughout his existence. No matter who used him and what they chose to add to his mythos, the feeling of being stalked and observed by something with unknown motives never went away. There were always people who chose not to believe, but the power of those who believed was so palpable that Herobrine was simply inescapable from the community. The vagueness of it all, the simple factor of the unknown, was the beating heart of this creepypasta. We had to try and fathom what he was and what he wants, which makes him seem more alien in our attempts to humanize him. I remember when I was like 12 or 13, I convinced someone back in the day that Herobrine was real and he was going to kill them, which made him have a total breakdown. It's hilarious out of context, but he was a big follower of Minecraft. It had spookier side and was so enthralled in it all that it got to him, and it makes me look like a huge dick. Things were just starting to centralize in the 2010s on the internet. People started sticking together and defining themselves somewhat through their respective communities. So Herobrine can easily be viewed as an unintentional community effort, through starting out as glitch speculation, to developing a physical design, to being given a mythology and explanation through a vague backstory. I used Gary's mod as an example of comparison because the two games share a lot of similarities in what people choose to focus on for horror interpretations. The isolation, the unknown, the quiet environments, the large open spaces of the map, but also nostalgia. Herobrine has been around for well over 10 years, and people like me look back at him fondly, and are able to recognize and understand his influence. The name is most often spoken in past tense in contexts like, "Oh, I remember that story, he spooked me as a kid." Currently, people don't find him scary because they view him as something stuck in the past, defined by the 2010s. There are traces of his legacy in other media, but him as an icon specifically has largely been laid to rest for some time now, existing mostly in the memories of people who are now in their early to mid-20s. People fondly remember the patch notes, the Copeland streams, which are actually mostly lost media, fun fact, and countless other inspired media pieces that featured the default skin with white eyes. I made a separate video entirely about how White Eyes is involved in the Herobrine that I'll link below. There are a lot more details to the Herobrine story, but it would be tough to find someone who doesn't concur that he defines what Minecraft creepypastas were entirely about in the 2010s, largely being short stories about being stalked in-game, or something about the game not being as you remember it. There were dozens of similar stories right after this about similar entities doing similar things, all with varying levels of quality. But that was for the 2010s. What do Minecraft creepypastas in the 2020s look like? Casey's Cave is a name you may or may not recognize. 2012, console edition of Minecraft. Like I've mentioned, creepypastas aren't what they once were. People don't write them much anymore in the current decade because there's something most people decided to leave in the 2010s. But on my journey, I decided to browse the dedicated Minecraft creepypasta page, but I struggled to find most stories regarded as classics that were written recently. But I did find something. Something was written in 2020. The story started with a disclaimer that the article was actually a translation of a Russian article, which only meant one thing: things were about to get very strange. I don't think there's a weirder, more deranged country in relation to video games than Russia. Every game Russians like are usually free or easy to emulate, can run on low-spec PCs, and are usually insanely violent and tragic. I kind of want to make a whole video on that topic. The structure of this story is interesting because it isn't formatted like a traditional narrative, but rather a documentation and exploration of a strange, lost version of Minecraft the author found. From the various screenshots provided in the story, we see that various elements of the game are different, to say the least. Several objects and elements of the UI are completely bugged out. Your player model is headless, the item stack doesn't work properly. Basically everything you should expect to function in Minecraft to function doesn't function, but never in a predictable way. It's not just that some things are warped and mechanics are different to vanilla Minecraft, it's that things change repeatedly. For instance, the stack limit randomly changes at a whim, so you never know what to expect. Through research, I was able to find what Error 422 actually was. This is no mere story, this is a large-scale modification of Minecraft itself. Error 422 is a mod created by Super Medivis? Am I saying that right? Medivis? On GameJolt. The game is often distributed through an exe file, so I must advertise some caution before downloading this game willy-nilly. Maybe just stick to gameplay videos on YouTube before you trust anyone on GameJolt to download an exe file. I've already described the running appeal of the game, but there is so much more to explore and discover. But the most pressing and important aspect of this topic is that someone made this. Think about it. Creepypastas of old would exactly describe a scenario like this. A strange version of Minecraft with disturbing bugs and unexplained glitches that make you feel unsafe. They just made it into a fully playable game. There are many more details I could talk about considering how the mod works internally in every single detail, but both the technical and the fantastical aspects of 422 could deserve entirely separate videos on their own. People understand Minecraft so much more now that what was a fantasy scenario 10 years ago has become a hard reality now. You get to interact with a real creepypasta game rather than just reading it. Beyond how impressive it is for someone to make the modification in the first place, the rapid acceleration of the creepypasta community impresses me just as much. We went from kids who are inspired by fictional events to creating them, and we have actually them show up in a game. Between one decade, people could only describe what you're seeing on screen to being able to just make it themselves. I know I'm repeating myself, I just need everyone to be aware of how impressive that is within the span of 10 years. I was talking about how creepypastas are kind of dead, and it is sort of true for the traditional written stories, but I would argue the medium has evolved to include the creation of mods, of fan games to replace the simple stories that many of us grew up with. While the written stories haven't been abandoned, the medium has expanded, and I would argue that it often goes hand in hand with ARGs, which Casey's Cave is all but lost. Nearly all content about it has been scrubbed clean off the internet with limited exceptions. It's been gone for so long that alternate reality games, often called ARGs for short, sound simple, but are anything but. The name entails a lot more player interaction than what typically happens, because this definition is stretched so thin that basically anything could be called an ARG. The concept has been around for quite a while, but didn't really blow up until the mid to late 2010s. Classic examples like the Halo 2 ARG back in the 2000s incorporated a lot of interesting early internet interactivity. Meanwhile, what people call an ARG now is just a video series with no player interaction about Godzilla or something. There aren't a huge number of hard rules for what defines an ARG and what doesn't, and it's usually just the narrative that defines if an ARG is legitimately good or not. Just like its older brother, ARGs also tend to run into a lot of tropes that kind of fall flat that people make fun of. It really depends on the creator's storytelling abilities and just what that story is, how the story is incorporated into the medium. Think about it. How does the game the story uses fit into everything? Is it used as a metaphor, or are things literally happening in-game? Naturally, Minecraft has dipped its toes into the ARGs, and unlike most, it has more than one example to explore. Many of them are quite good, but the one I wanted to talk about is simply called Don't Look at the Moon. The year is 2020. This is when iceberg charts start to become especially popular on the internet because it's an easy way to rapid shoot a lot of information quickly, and it became an overnight algorithm darling. Naturally, Minecraft got one of its own, but one particular entry was confusing everyone who saw it. Towards the end, Don't Look at the Moon stuck out like a sore thumb. People didn't know what that entailed until they dug deeper. A YouTube channel by the name of Legend Finder began uploading several Minecraft videos that all center around the same topic: the moon. Minecraft's moon, ever since it was added, has always felt strangely disconnected from the rest of the game. For a game with as many mechanics and ways to creatively enable your environment, I always felt it was a bit odd that the moon was one of the only untouchable aspects of the game. But the moon might hold some secrets after all. In this example, Legend claims that looking at the moon under a specific circumstance will make the clock item go crazy. This doesn't seem to work, but he continues investigating rumors about the strange properties of the moon and documenting his process as he does so. He continues to upload more videos about the moon, which become more and more unhinged as time goes on. The notes he writes about each rumor become less and less legible. Minecraft is abandoned at one point, and these guerrilla-styled vlogs about the creator's diminishing physical and mental health start taking over, showing just how hard the toll of obsessing over the moon is taken on him. When I explain the series like that, it might not sound compelling, but the beauty is in the details. The primary strength this series has is the acting, so to speak. Legend never really breaks character. He sounds completely serious when he does everything he does, even when he doesn't boot up Minecraft. Seeing how his mannerisms change throughout his uploads is very engaging. There's also a huge appeal in potentially finding some secret information about Minecraft that people previously weren't privy to. This is a series that is best left to the imagination, which I kind of ruined by explaining a lot of it, but go watch the original series, or at least a breakdown video, because there are a lot of details that are best to experience yourself. What does this series tell us about the sensibilities of horror creators today? I think there's something to be said about how people are in character for this series. There's a lot more than just writing a convincing narrative from a character's point of view on screen. Legend has to act and string everything together and run a channel in character, which is impressive considering how well it was all done. The internet is being used as a stage and Minecraft as the storyboard. One can easily view the game's mechanics as one giant blocky metaphor for addiction or sans being Ness or something. The nature of storytelling is something that has bended around the advent of the internet in fantastic ways that other mediums simply could not hope to achieve, or at least not in a fun, engaging way. This isn't Minecraft's first ARG, not by a long shot. Many people likely thought of Old Root when I first mentioned ARGs. But that honestly deserves its own entire video, because it's a rabbit hole that extends far beyond the scopes of this one. Since ARGs are all the rage today, I suspect that Minecraft will be the host to another, if not many more. Since the format can be played fast and loose, there aren't a lot of restricting factors to abide by, much less what people find entertaining. I just hope there isn't analog horror incorporated, because that hypothetical creator would have one hell of a time trying to explain why analog technology in Minecraft could exist in the same time frame, let alone Scare Theater is a name you should be familiar with. He's one of the largest horror creators on the platform, but little known fact about him is he had his hand in creating this series, a series based off of a creepypasta that has long been deemed lost media. But before that, why don't we take a breather?
Left and right, let's wait for
Now that I've been laying out hints, I should actually talk about this mysterious series I've been hyping up this entire video. What exactly is Casey's Cave? Is it a creepypasta? ARG? Something else? Well, I would argue it has shades of everything I've talked about so far, and there aren't many videos online talking about it because the series got taken down forever ago. But let me explain how I even discovered this. Months ago, a longtime dedicated fan of mine named DJ Deadpig contacted me shortly after I released my White Eyes video, letting me know that a series that largely exists in the minds of those who watched it back in the early 2010s. Much of what I'm going to tell you is only possible because of DJ Deadpig's findings and through our frequent communications. I'm gonna need you guys and gals to thank him for his hard work by subbing to his channel and showing him some love. The legacy of Casey's Cave is pretty complicated and has a lot of frequent jumps, so try and keep up. On June 24th, 2012, a YouTube channel named The Brothers Machado, I think that's how you say it, uploaded an original Minecraft creepypasta going by Casey's Cave. The story was about the user exploring a strange cave going by the same name and encountering a mysterious woman inside, described as looking very similar to that little ghost girl from The Ring. Desperate to escape the threat of her stalking him, he seals off the cave and hopes to never encounter it again. Seems like a simple story, but it got over 100,000 views on the channel, which is no small feat for such an early creepypasta. There were other sequels written and narrated by the same author, but we need to digest two things. Firstly, the cave itself. It isn't explained how, but random caves can spawn inside your world, and contain some kind of ghostly girl inside. Secondly, this cave has been dubbed Casey's Cave, Casey being the name given to the girl, or the creature inside. Given how many people were aware of the story, it was only fitting that someone would take it a step beyond and go where no one else has gone. Enter ECW Gaming, a now defunct YouTube channel. ECW was so inspired by Casey's Cave that he decided to create an entire series directly inspired by it. This series, counting trailers and pilot episodes, is 14 entries long. Like I've mentioned, all of it has been taken down, and there isn't any way to ever watch it again because no backups have been found. I really wasn't exaggerating when I said this series was lost media, because all we have left of this series visually is a screenshot on a thumbnail or poster. However, Deadpig, along with some friends, discovered something crucial to putting this together. While we don't have any copies of the video, we do have a pastebin document containing the original descriptions of each upload, as well as the English auto-generated subtitles. The subtitles are a little rough, but they should be enough to tell us what's going on. The first video I found is called I Found Casey's Cave, uploaded on October 22nd, 2012. The video explains how ECW created a new world for fun and found the infamous Casey's Cave, exactly how it was described in the original pasta. From what I can discern from the captions, he enters the cave carefully, taking note of how dark and gloomy it is, more so than Minecraft caves typically are. ECW is in disbelief over everything, assuming he had either put in a wacky seed or it's a friend pulling a prank on him. I think he decides not to venture down further until later, but not before he encounters some kind of monster, likely the one described in the original story. And that later is the next upload on January 20th, 2013, called Casey's Cave Entry Number 1, where he starts really documenting his progress into the cave system. ECW returns inside the cave, this time much more prepared in diamond armor and torches, determined to slay the Casey monster inside. This attempt doesn't go too well, and he immediately panics and tries to escape by mining away. He finds a chest deep inside the cave with a record labeled Mall, and he follows up on that in the second entry released on January 21st, 2013. The track is actually the C418 Mall track used in the official game. ECW enlists the help of what I believe to be his friend named Venom, but it's a little difficult to tell from the auto-generated subtitles. What happens next is kind of confusing. He said he hooked up the disc to some kind of projector tech that allows you to see a video format on the Xbox 360 version of Minecraft. I think he's stretching the game logic a bit for the series, but regardless, he explains that there are 11 more similar discs to find that might allow him to solve the mystery of the cave. The main story of the series has become apparent. They needed to explore the cave and find the discs inside to explain who the monster is and why it resides in a cave. Throughout the series that aired in 2013, we find out more and more details about Casey. She's revealed to be either another player or NPC in the world of Minecraft who was frequently bullied a lot in schools she went to by her peers and by her own father, which made her very lonely. She began to mine on her own, constructing a series of dangerous levers that opened up holes, and the group that had formed to figure this all out theorized that she may have taken her own life out of desperation. ECW starts advertising merchandise for his series, which will become very apparent very soon. The series finishes on September 21st, with the gang knowing that Casey turned into the monster and goes inside the cave to slay her, which, from everything I could tell, didn't end very successfully. The series ended abruptly because in the description, the creator had some things come up in his life that prevented him from working on it any further, revealing that everything was fake at the end. The story of the series might seem underwhelming when I don't have any footage of it, but more interesting than the series itself is the mystery surrounding its creation and who created it. Some may have tried to look up the name ECW Gaming, but found nothing. That's because his channel was renamed to Scare Theater 2, the alternate account of Scare Theater, the popular horror YouTuber. Don't believe me? Let me walk you through everything. The website I use to track the subtitle lists the channel as Scare Theater 2, which keeps up to date with its most modern uploads, including which ones are not publicly listed on the channel. Remember the merch I spoke about? There's a website called Zazzle that still has a link for a poster created by the series by ECW. Scare Theater mentions he has a second channel for gameplay videos on his main channel video about the Arizona Creepypasta, because in the channel URL for his second channel, it's still called ECW Gaming. I didn't bring this to light to try and mess with Scare Theater, because even if he made this series as a young teenager, it was way better than anything I could have made at his age, but consider how weird and interesting the creation of this series is. I should also add a disclaimer not to bother Scare Theater about this series. It was removed for a reason, and he probably doesn't want to ask about something he made 10 years ago just because it became slightly more relevant again. It's a web series based off of a creepypasta made by a popular YouTuber, which I guess you can sort of argue is an ARG video series, which has now become lost media. How many bases did we just cover in 5 seconds? To me, Casey's Cave covers everything I just mentioned as a perfect circle for how Minecraft can be adapted into various horror projects. Hell, I didn't even talk about the lost media side of Minecraft, which is just as vast as the game itself. There are entire missing versions of that game that no one has found, I'm pretty sure. But I'll leave the lost media experts to that, because that's a whole different rabbit hole to poke your head in. Many of these series are rooted in the past, but something unites them all: people's willingness to express themselves. They were able to look at such a simple game, at least at the time, and give it a unique spin and run with it. Stories, video series, entire mods just to bring their ideas to life, which have a home inside of such a creatively enabled game like Minecraft. But what of the future? I can never say that all of these topics will just disappear forever, even if they aren't nearly as popular as they used to be. Channels like mine, SourceBrew, and others are keeping creepypastas of old alive through our respective efforts and videos. We're still kind of deep into the ARG/video series of Minecraft, but what internet horror projects are relevant now, and will Minecraft follow suit and be adapted? Analog horror video series seem to be all the rage now, but I would highly recommend that Minecraft has no part in it. Analog horror as a series is so deeply rooted in the aesthetics and sensibilities of late 70s and 80s, what with the analog media obsession in so many series based off of advertisements or television programs, that slapping a filter over Minecraft gameplay would look kind of stupid, making it hard to suspend their disbelief. Alternatively, for some reason, Friday Night Funkin' has a lot, and I mean a lot, of horror mods. And I'll just come out and say it, I think it sucks. Basically, any idea that could have any potential of being interesting or fun is rendered instantly lame and flaccid when it's adapted into a game, because there's no real chance for the story to be told that doesn't bend over backwards to explain why whatever horror creature is being featured has to pick up a microphone and sing a music track that is guaranteed to sound awful. I have a very negative view of both analog horror and Friday Night Funkin', but it isn't doom and gloom, because I have no doubt in my mind something new will arise that I will like much more. It's hard to predict what style or format decides to become popular, but if it's anything like the stuff I grew up with, then I think the people of tomorrow will enjoy whatever comes next and hold it dearly whenever they grow up and see what comes next after that. This whole retrospective doesn't cover everything, far from it. There are way too many creepypastas, ARGs, etc. to cover in a single video, so I had to leave a lot of stuff out, but I encourage you to investigate this yourself and find which examples are your favorites and tell me down below in the comments section. I'm curious to see what everyone has to offer. Minecraft is a game that will live on throughout the ages, unless Mojang decides to treat it even worse than they already do, and its wide demographic will always be projecting the newest trends onto the game. This might sound like a negative aspect, but I choose to look at it positively, at least by filtering out the garbage. Whatever horror projects come next, I look forward to covering them in the future. I really hope this topic does well, because I just spent way too much money on a Sega Dreamcast and I'm really feeling the pain. On one hand, I'm eating ramen all week. On the other, I can play Sonic Adventure without wanting to die. With that, that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed the brief retrospective on the different aspects of horror the Minecraft community was able to cook up. If this style of video is something you enjoy, along with the coverage of strange and obscure video games, then you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, and perhaps considering supporting me on Patreon so I can make more of these videos. To all my sandstone-pilled individuals, have a lovely rest of your day.